Hello, you're watching A News. I'm Bakhtiar Sanov, and let's see the top stories. Poland deploys jets to counter Russian drones as tensions escalate. Donald Trump has issued a letter to NATO nations calling on them to stop buying Russian oil and to impose sweeping sanctions on Moscow. And protesters in Israel demand to end the war in Gaza and bring the hostages back home. Polish and Allied jets were deployed in a preventive operation to secure the country's airspace from potential drone threats, with airports temporarily closed and air defenses put on high alert. Authorities stressed the operation was precautionary, aimed at protection.
Polish and Allied aircraft have been scrambled in what officials describe as a preventive operation to secure the country's airspace. The move comes amid fears of drone strikes spilling over from neighbouring Ukraine. The alert was issued on Saturday, forcing the temporary closure of Lublin Airport in eastern Poland. It lasted around 2 hours before being lifted, during which authorities also warned residents in several border counties of a potential air threat. Ground-based air defence and reconnaissance systems were placed on high alert, though the military stressed the measures were precautionary, aimed at protecting Polish citizens and deterring any escalation. The alert comes after a major incident on Wednesday, when NATO jets shot down 19 Russian drones that had entered Polish airspace, leaving debris across the countryside, according to Prime Minister Tusk. European leaders have since called the incident a deliberate provocation by Moscow. Russia insists it did not target Poland, while its ally Belarus has claimed the drones veered off course after being jammed. By Saturday evening, Poland's operational command confirmed the mission was complete and air defences stood down, highlighting ongoing tensions along the country's eastern border.
Thousands of Poles are signing up for voluntary military training as fears of Russian aggression grow. It comes after Poland shot down Russian drones in its airspace this week, the first NATO member known to have fired during the war in Ukraine.
Just 6 kilometers from the Russian border in northern Poland, Office Administrator Agnieszka is digging a trench. She's not a soldier, but she wants to be ready to defend her family, including her 13-year-old son, if war ever comes.
I always say I would do anything to keep my child safe. I would absolutely stand and fight to protect him. And the rest, well...
Thousands of Poles like her are signing up for voluntary military training, part of a nationwide push to strengthen Poland's defences amid growing fears of Russian aggression. Those fears spiked this week after Poland shot down Russian drones in its airspace, the first time a NATO country has fired during Russia's war in Ukraine. The Kremlin dismissed Western concerns as emotional overload, insisting it poses no threat. But Poland isn't taking chances.
This is one of the main tasks for units in peacetime, to train the reserves. It's not something extra, additional, or often even unnecessary. It's one of the core responsibilities because every conflict shows one thing. Conflicts are always won by the reserves, especially long-lasting ones.
Training for new volunteers is underway at Braniewo, a military base near the border. More than 20,000 Poles have already signed up this year, and officials expect that figure to reach 40,000 by December, more than double the numbers seen in 2022.
I'm the oldest of 3 siblings, so I feel this need to protect my family. Just like our ancestors once defended these lands, I feel a responsibility to carry that on if such a need were to arise.
Since Russia's invasion, Poland has more than doubled its defence spending, now devoting 4.7% of its economy to the military, the highest ratio in NATO. For many here, it's about being ready and facing what they call a new reality on NATO's eastern flank.
U.S. President Donald Trump has issued a letter to NATO nations calling on them to stop buying Russian oil and to impose sweeping sanctions on Moscow. Trump says a coordinated action could quickly end the war in Ukraine. In a letter addressed to NATO nations and the world, Donald Trump said he is ready to impose major sanctions on Russia. Trump criticized NATO's lack of commitment to winning the war and said buying Russian oil weakens the alliance's bargaining power. He also proposed that NATO countries place tariffs of up to 100% on China, which he claimed would pressure Beijing to push Moscow to end the conflict. Calling the war deadly but ridiculous, Trump said it wouldn't have started under his presidency and claimed his plan could save thousands of lives. North Korea has issued a fresh warning to the United States, South Korea and Japan ahead of their annual joint military exercises. Kim Yo-jong, the influential sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, says the drills could bring what she called negative consequences for the three nations. Kim Yo-jong accused the allies of a reckless display of power near North Korea. The warning comes as South Korea, Japan and the United States prepare to launch their Freedom Edge military exercises on Monday. According to Seoul's military, the annual drills are designed to bolster aerial, naval and cyber defenses against North Korea's growing nuclear and missile threats. Pyongyang has long denounced such drills as rehearsals for invasion, while Seoul and Washington insist they are purely defensive. U.S. President Donald Trump's top diplomat Marco Rubio arrived in Israel on Sunday, greeted by U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee. Rubio said the United States was unhappy with Israel's recent strike on Hamas leaders in Qatar and ongoing settlement expansion. He emphasized that United States-Israel relations would remain strong while discussing how the strikes could affect efforts to secure the return of hostages and end the Gaza conflict. Protests erupted in Israel on Saturday as hostage families and demonstrators in Tel Aviv accused Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of derailing ceasefire talks. The rallies come just days after Israel's strike in Qatar, which risked undermining U.S.-backed negotiations.
Protesters in Israel unveiled a huge banner in Tel Aviv's Hostages Square on Saturday, urging Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to stop deceiving US President Donald Trump. Marchers called on the government to strike a deal for the release of captives still held in Gaza. Earlier in the day, families of captives gathered in the same square, blaming the government for derailing ceasefire talks after Israel's strike in Qatar aimed at Hamas leaders.
Whoever truly wants to bring the hostages home does not bomb the Hamas negotiation team while they are discussing the release of my son and the other hostages. Prime Minister, I'm calling on you, let's sit down face to face. Father to father, no media, no spin, no leaks, and answer me just one question. If your children were among the hostages, would they also be rotting in tunnels for over 700 days? So why are our children?
Netanyahu has defended the strike, saying the removal of Hamas leaders abroad is the key to ending the conflict and freeing hostages. US officials, however, called the action a unilateral escalation that undermined Washington's mediation. Israel says only around 20 of the more than 250 hostages taken in Hamas's October 2023 attacks are believed to be alive. Nearly 2 years into the Gaza war, Palestinian authorities report over 64,000 deaths and nearly complete displacement of the population, with a starvation crisis unfolding.
France has been hit with a sovereign ratings cut and fresh political turbulence. Fitch downgraded the country to A+ on Friday, just days after MPs ousted Prime Minister François Bayrou. President Macron's new Premier Sébastien Lecornu now faces protest and a daunting budget fight in a divided parliament.
Fitch has lowered France's credit rating to A+, the country's lowest, from a major agency citing a heavier debt load and an unclear path to stabilising the deficit. The move lands on 12th September, with borrowing costs already edging higher and investors watching France's gap to Germany. It follows a bruising week in Paris. On Monday, 8 September, MPs passed a no-confidence motion that toppled François Bayrou's government. Emmanuel Macron then named Sébastien Lecornu as his fifth prime minister in under 2 years, tasking him to assemble a cabinet and deliver a 2026 budget that can pass a hung assembly by early October.
Il y a maintenant 2 ans que la France a un
For 2 years now, France has an out-of-control public deficit, so really, this downgrade is explained by the out-of-control public deficit and not specifically by the fall of Bayrou's government that we have seen this week.
Il y a la dégradation.
Markets had partly priced in the risk, but the downgrade underlines pressure on Lecornu to narrow the deficit estimated at about 5.4% of GDP, while brokering compromises with both centre-right and socialist blocs on tax and spending. Draft budget plans are due to reach Parliament by 7th October, with 13th October as a possible backstop.
Ces impacts ils sont plutôt limités.
Its impacts are quite limited. Of course, the impact of this downgrade is a lower quality debt and increased debt burden, which means a higher level of interests that it repays each year.
Vraiment suite à la dissolution. Donc là,
Beyond the chamber, anger spilled into the streets. On Wednesday, 10th September, Block Everything protests disrupted roads around cities including Nantes, Montpellier and Lyon, with sporadic clashes and hundreds of arrests as demonstrators railed against spending cuts and the political class.
dès que vous avez une augmentation de la prime de
Once you have an increase in France's risk premium for the French, having an increase in the debt burden means a higher cost of financing. In a context in which we want more growth, this is also not favourable.
prêt immobilier, eh bien les taux vont augmenter.
Lecornu will now try to hold his bloc together while courting votes across the aisle. Any sign of slippage on deficit plans or of deeper political paralysis could keep pressure on French yields and test investor appetite for OATS versus German bunds.
Military exercises continue in Azerbaijan with the participation of special forces from Kazakhstan, Pakistan, Qatar, Turkey and Uzbekistan. The exercises primarily focus on enhancing interoperability and strengthening cooperation among the special forces of allied nations. Participants are engaged in joint special operations aimed at promoting the exchange of experience and improving coordination. During the exercises, combat training tasks covering shooting, parachuting, sniping and clearing residential areas of enemy forces are being successfully carried out. Azerbaijan and Turkey discuss prospects for opening Zangezur corridor. AK Party Deputy Chairman Kursat Zorlu discussed the project and bilateral cooperation in the region with Azerbaijani officials. The project is expected to enhance transport, energy and logistics links between Azerbaijan and Turkey.
The deputy chairman of Turkish ruling Justice and Development Party and head of relations with Turkic states has visited Nakhchivan for a series of high-level meetings. During the visit, discussions covered the opening of offices for the Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency and the Yunus Emre Institute in Nakhchivan. Opportunities in mining and research projects were also highlighted, with officials stressing that bilateral ties are set to deepen further.
If the corridor between Azerbaijan and Nakhchivan is realized, it will not only connect Azerbaijan to Turkey, but also create an important transport, energy and logistics corridor stretching from Beijing across the Caspian to Turkey and Europe.
A Turkish official, touching on regional diplomacy, highlighted the Turkish-Armenian normalization process. They noted that the region is progressing towards significant advances in peace, stability and security. Analysts say that once the Zangezur corridor is realized, it will not only expand regional economic and transport opportunities, but also reinforce Turkish strategic role in Eurasia. In this context, Ankara is expected to remain a key actor in the project. Associate Professor Orhan Valiev emphasized in an interview to our news.
Yes, Turkey will be part of the key partner, the key actor on this the project. So and also the establishment of the Zangezur corridor will open the opportunities for Turkey to strengthen the central role within the framework of the Turkic world and also, let's say, Eurasia, because Turkey will become the hub in terms of the energy roads, and let's say because the Zangezur corridor will eventually include railroads, the pipelines, and also fiber optic lines as well. So Turkey will become the main hub in this issue, and also because of its the military the capacity, and also as a NATO member country state. So Turkey will be the key the actor in this the project.
The Iğder-Nachivan natural gas pipeline is also significant in terms of energy diversification and security. It further strengthens the bonds of brotherhood between Ankara and Baku.
Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan are stepping up regional energy cooperation. At their latest meeting in Cholpon-Ata, the three neighbors signed a protocol on electricity supply through spring 2026. The agreement aims to preserve water resources in Kyrgyzstan's Toktogul reservoir and ensure power deliveries from Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan during the winter months. Uzbekistan has dispatched its first container train from Tashkent to China's Lanzhou, marking a new step in regional rail connectivity. The service launched with Gansu International Logistics is part of a wider push to strengthen cross-border trade routes. Sevil Rajapova reports.
Uzbekistan dispatched its first container train from Tashkent to China through Kyrgyzstan. The train, with 4 platforms, is bound for Lanzhou and was organized jointly with Gansu International Logistics. The company has opened a new logistics base in Uzbekistan to support these operations. The launch followed the cooperation agreement between Ust-Yamur Yol Container and Gansu International Logistics Group, which outlines the development of block train container transport along the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan road. The agreement follows several earlier initiatives. In late May, a block train of 50 containers was launched from Tashkent to Fuzhou, carrying Uzbek export goods. Also, a container block train from China to Uzbekistan was established in August 2024, involving 50 40-foot containers traveling via Kazakhstan and arriving at Nazarbayev station. In December 2024, Uzbekistan sent its first block train to Brazil. 54 containers of urea departed from Tashkent via Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Georgia, not by the sea from Poti to Brazil. For Uzbekistan, these projects demonstrate a gradual shift from the constraints of being a landlocked country toward broader and regional and international connectivity. By expanding rail corridors, launching block train services to new stations, and developing supporting logistics infrastructure, the country is strengthening its role in cross-border trade and ensuring more reliable accessibility. It is Sevil Rajapova reporting from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, A News.
That's all the news we have for you now from Baku. Stay tuned to A News for more updates.